So here's something else you got to think about that I'm not even sure about, but I just got to thinking about it, and that's why I hung up the phone on that phone call right there. I think this thing has like an off limits on the team deal. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be a little different for me. I'm just going to kind of spitball through this thing. I'm going to leave that camera pretty much mounted on the boat. I'm in my garage right now, the boat garage. I am getting ready for an event. We have a team event, the Triple T down in Texas. And it's on Rayburn. And with the COVID, they have canceled a couple of events, you know, earlier in the spring. And so now to make them up, we're going to fish 2 one-day tournaments in a row. And it's going to be 2 separate tournaments, but 2 days back to back. So it won't be combined weight, but 1 and 1. And this is a Triple T trail down in Texas. It's a big team trail down there. The money's really good. That's why I travel. I fish with Andrew Upshaw, who technically is originally from the Toledo Bend area, which is the next lake over from Rayburn. So he does have some local experience, but I'm just going to kind of spitball and go through this thing about kind of what goes through my mind, how I'm going to prepare for this event. We only get 1 day of practice. I'm not going to lie, it is a little bit of being behind the 8 ball, having to go down and compete against Rayburn locals who live there and spend a tremendous amount of time on that lake. They are extremely good. It is all the best fishermen in the East Texas area generally fish these events. This is the same event that the guys weighed in almost 50 pounds in the first one earlier this spring before the COVID came. You really have to fish strong and have great days to have a shot at top 10 in one of these, more or less winning them. It is a little bit uncomfortable for me to go down there. There's no doubt. I mean, these guys have a lot of time and a lot of experience there. And, you know, kind of what goes through my mind is how I strategize to fish for these events. And some of you guys that know me well, I know what you're thinking. Well, you know, he's really good friends with Jason Bonds, and he's really good friends with Todd Castledine, and he's really good friends with Russell Cecil, and I am. But the truth is, I haven't talked to Cecil in 2 months, and Castledine and Cecil wouldn't tell me whether they're getting bit in 2 foot of water or 20 foot of water. Not the absolute truth when I'm fishing against them. That's just how it is. And Jason Too Tall Bonds, I mean, after the ass kicking I gave him when he came to Oklahoma a couple weeks ago, he ain't going to tell me nothing. He's going to want the pound on me. So these are just the truths of the matter. So I'm going to go through some of the ideas that I've got in my mind. I've done zero research. There's no tournament history to look at on it. I do know that Andrew and Castledine did go down there and film a little bit, but that in itself is going to be a month ago that happened. So, you know, things change, and they change drastically. Those fish in Texas are a lot further along, so they don't relate to the same thing my fish up here do. We still got fish that are still really finishing up the spawn. The shad spawn's really just getting kicked off here in Oklahoma. A lot of high water. That is one thing that I will do while I'm out here is I'll grab my phone and I will look at the lake level at Rayburn. That will have a lot to do with it. But generally speaking, I like to go down there. I like to have a flipping stick in my hand. And it's hard to win an event with a flipping stick in your hand unless they are really, really, really in the bushes down there. The offshore guys just catch them and catch them and catch them. And it happens every time I go down there. I've seen it year after year. And so, you know, offshore stuff takes a little longer to find, but look for some of those groups of fish that have got those big fish in them, because that's the same way that 50-pound bag was caught. You know, they did catch that bag on the bank. So really, it's just going to be what I'm really kind of thinking about. So we'll see what happens, and I'm just going to sit here and work on my tackle and get ready for the Texas event and kind of just take you guys along with me. All right, got my coffee. First thing we're going to do is we're going to make some phone calls, because we're going to call some phone calls because we know some people. Let's start with Tad Castledine, because he's not going to allow much, but we're going to talk to him. Thought you might be in church this morning. Where are you this morning?
That's where I came down here, fished the championship with Russell and Conrad.
Yeah.
We'll fish.
How did you and Russell do yesterday?
It's horrible.
Really? That was that championship, that local championship or something?
Yeah, he won that Tuesday night deal. And we were at that spot and everybody fished.
Yeah. Oh, I'm starting to rig up for Rayburn. I'm wondering what you want me to go do and what your thought process is.
Man, I don't know. I mean, I think we're going to spend a ton of time out deep looking.
Called Tad earlier this morning and kind of asked him about it. He felt like that was a good way to catch a big one.
Oh, I mean, yeah, no, that's the way to catch it. Like, in my opinion, that's the way to catch the biggest fish in the lake on Rayburn.
So here's something else you got to think about that I'm not even sure about, but I just got to thinking about it. And that's why I hung up the phone on that phone call right there. I think this thing has like an off limits on the team deal. I need to look at the rules, but so far I've only talked to Castledine and up y'all who are both fishing the event. So you don't want to call somebody until you've seen the rules. And I don't think about it in a team event because I just think of a team event being a team event, but it could very well have off limits, and I need to check that out. So yeah, they have a 5-day off limits, Monday through Friday, and Friday being a practice day. But today, this event's going to start on Friday, so if you go 5 days before that, that puts it today. So, like I say, you want to make sure you read your rules, know what your off limits are. It could be critical, get yourself in some trouble. Fortunately for me, the 2 guys I called are in the Derby. But you don't get as much info probably, but I at least got the general. Castledine had a pretty good idea, and Upshaw just wants me to go do my deal. So that's where we are. So we're going to string some rods. All right, guys, so this is day 2. As you can see, I spent about another 8 or 9 hours yesterday out here, and I still just made a bigger mess than what I was. I really got like 5 days of tackle probably to do to get some stuff organized. But back to Rayburn, what I was talking about. So I made some phone calls. I talked to Castledine a little bit. I tried to talk to Cecil, but he never did call me back. And I talked to Andrew a little bit. So all these guys are fishing the event. Obviously, I'm fishing with Cecil, not Cecil, but Upshaw. So we basically have to break down. We have 1 day of practice. That's the issue with this tournament coming up. We do have 2 days of tournaments, but we've only got 1 day of practice. And it's limited for a guy like myself that lives up here in Oklahoma. It's not that I'm not familiar with Rayburn. I am. I'm just not familiar with Rayburn to the extent that those guys that live down there are. So basically, we had to come up with a game plan of how to maximize our time on the lake during practice and then also during the event. And the game plan that Andrew and I have kind of come up with really is to maximize my time more so because he is much more familiar with the lake. So I'm going to let him try to jump a lot of places. I have picked 3 areas in the lake that I am going to spend the majority of my time in those areas. These aren't secret areas. One is the Black Forest, one being the Caney area, and one probably being up around the canyons of Deer Creek and Deer Stand. Those are massive, massive areas, but they're areas that the fish are going to be caught out of. We know they're going to be caught out of them. I am going to do something that I'm really good at doing here at home. I'm going to spend all my time looking for brush piles, and not only looking for brush piles, but then trying to figure out which ones could possibly be more effective than others. Now, Rayburn's a grass lake, and I'm aware of that, and a lot of the fish are going to come out of the grass, and Andrew is going to dissect the grass throughout the day. But it's June. It's going to be, early June in East Texas, which you guys that live in other parts of the country, it's going to be really warm down there. I mean, they're way past the spawn. Shad spawn should be over. I mean, these fish should truly be beginning their summer haunts. I mean, this is really when it starts going down. I mean, even as far as Kentucky Lake, north, when those ledges really start firing off there in the summertime is the beginning of June. So I'm really expecting that to be going on and has been going on for a little while at Rayburn. Brush pile fishing is something in Oklahoma, we do not have grass. So when our fish get offshore, other than rock piles and a little bit of current that we have on some of the reservoirs, there's really nothing else out there for them but brush piles. So brush piling becomes a very, very big deal. And it's something that I spent a lot of time with. As a matter of fact, I've got a video on my YouTube channel if you guys want to go back and check it out. I think it's called like 101 of brush pile fishing or something like that. But it basically goes over how I use all of my Garmin electronics to maximize my time on the water fishing brush piles. It's actually a really good video. I did it last summer out on Lake Thunderbird, which is also one of those lakes I'm talking about that doesn't have any cover at all out there other than brush piles. And it's a big deal. All the Wednesday night guys know all about planting brush piles, moving brush piles. Brush piling is a big deal. So brush piles at Rayburn is something that is not just overly talked about because it's a lot about grass. I know that one of the Elite Series events was basically won in the latter parts of the tournament off brush piles. Polinick won it. He was fishing brush piles, and I believe up by the deer stand area. I'm going to go and spend a lot of time idling and graphing. Now, also along with this time that I'm idling and graphing for brush piles specifically, it also gives me the opportunity to possibly find some of those schools of fish that could potentially be offshore, just on the same offshore structures that I'm looking for piles could possibly have groups of fish. So I'm going to spend a lot of time graphing and riding and looking for piles, marking the piles, but then also coming back and throwing some baits into them to see if I can get some bites. Now, whether or not that amounts to anything, I have no idea. But there's a lot of fish on the Rayburn. It sounds like they're biting really good. Listening to Castledine and a couple of guys talk about how good the fishing has been there. The problem is getting bites that, big bites. And as you guys know, anything about Rayburn right now, to win an event or top 10 in an event, you got to have some big fish. There was a tournament there last weekend, just looking at the results online. There were multiple bags over 20 pounds. It does appear that most of those guys with 20-pound plus bags had at least one really good kicker fish in their limit. So that 7-pound plus fish is really important. And I can't think of a better way personally to catch one than possibly a brush pile. Maybe catch a 7 to a 10-pounder out of a brush pile. So what I've done is I've rigged up. I'll show you some of the rods that I've already got going. DD22 is one of the first things that I'm going to throw in there, no doubt about it. I like to, when I first approach a brush pile, I like to throw a big crank in. DD22 is probably the most weedless brush fishing crankbait, deep diving crankbait that I've probably ever thrown. It's been my favorite for a long, long time. It's a crankbait that's been on the market forever, but they still eat this sucker. It's not the deepest diving crankbait, but quite frankly, I don't need it to dredge the bottom whenever I'm fishing brush piles anyway. I'd rather kind of clip the top third or top quarter of a brush pile with a crankbait. I don't want it to dig down at the very base of it. So that's usually my first few casts, and then I am going to follow that up with the big worm. I've got the big bite 10-inch worm on right now, and I'm going to throw it in the brush piles as well as another one that's just Texas rigged. I actually took both of these worms into the pool yesterday because Big Bite's got a couple of worms. One is just a regular 10-inch worm, the B2, and then also they have another worm that's a creek tail worm that's a little bit fatter diameter and has a larger tail. And I was really just kind of wanting to see the action difference in the pool. So when I put them in the pool, I actually learned something. The creek tail worm actually falls. The fall rate's about half of what the fall rate is on a regular 10-inch worm. You guys aren't familiar with Big Bite's worm. It's the equivalent of an old monster on a zoom, a little bit slenderer profile than the Berkeley 10-inch worm that guys threw forever. But whatever your preference, the big worms in the summertime, something that I enjoy throwing. They eat it in brush piles, and I've even got a drop shot tied on. If I feel like that I'm seeing fish around those brush piles and not being able to get some bites that they're just not inactive possibly, I may finesse around a little bit, but primarily the first day of practice will be just trying to find piles that have active fish in them. I like throwing a football jig a lot offshore. It's something I feel like when fish are on ledges, if I can't get them to react to a crank, it's something that I can get them to react to with that football jig sometimes, even when they won't go to that big worm. What else could I throw out there? I've got a big spinnerbait tied on. I have a 1-ounce spinnerbait tied on. I'll probably put that in some brush piles. I also like throwing them on the ledges, along with some of the big swim baits and the big spoons that we throw on Kentucky Lake. Could also have potential at Rayburn. That big spoon is a really cool bait. I don't have the success with it on reservoirs that do not have current like the Tennessee River does. The current seems to make that spoon better for me personally. I'm sure there's guys that catch them on it. I know guys up at Grand Lake that have been catching them on it, and it doesn't have the current. But me personally, I haven't been able to get on that bite or figure that bite out. I actually drew a guy up at Grand whose son had won a tournament up there the week prior to me drawing him, and he'd caught him on that big spoon, but it was during a time when the lake was really high, and they had the gates wide open, and they were pulling a tremendous amount of current out of it, and therefore, like what I was talking about, we had a lot of current, and that seems to make that spoon bite a little better. I can be way off on that. If you guys know anything about that, drop me a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. I just want to drop this video out there to kind of give you guys a heads up of a day of prep and tackle and how much is goes into this. I mean, this is just a team event is all this is. Now, it's a 2-dayer, and it's a pretty good sized team event. I mean, it would pay us a pretty good chunk of money to go to Texas and possibly win one of these. So I take it seriously. I enjoy going down there. I know the level of competition that we're up against when we go to East Texas. There's a lot of hammers down there. I've got a lot of friends down there. I look forward to getting down there and seeing those guys. I do wish I probably had another day of practice just on this event alone because it's a 2-dayer. But one thing that Upshaw and I did talk about is, and this is something you guys can think about anytime you do, because there's going to be a lot of guys doing some back-to-back events on a Saturday and a Sunday because of the COVID coming up. If things don't go well on the first day of the tournament, you can always start practicing on the first day of the tournament, because maybe the first day is going to be a scratch anyway. Maybe you run into something. Maybe you find something new that salvages a little bit of the first day that you can really expand on day 2 of the tournament and end up doing extremely well. So, well, that's pretty much all I've got for the Rayburn video as far as the closeout of what prep and things that went into getting ready for it. I've still got to get this boat tied together. I know tomorrow, since I'm not allowed to practice down there, one thing I am going to do is I'm going to go out here to Lake Hefner, which is a lake that I've only been on a couple times, and I know nothing about the offshore on it. And I've been told that there's no brush piles out there because they don't allow any brush, and it's an Oklahoma City lake. But I'm going to spend some time out there graphing just to get ready for Rayburn, because I've got new grass from last year. I haven't spent any time offshore with this new boat and the new grass to see exactly what they're going to look like on these grass, so I can be just a little bit finer tuned for my 1 day of practice that I've got at Rayburn whenever I get there. Really appreciate you guys following along. I hope this video helps you out with some of your prep work. I know that my stuff still looks like a total catastrophe, and it is. Until next time, I'm out of here. Thank you.